It started in the mid-80s. Charles Band was running full steam ahead on his studio, Empire Pictures, and they were cranking out some wonderful B-movies for the market. Band grew up reading comic books, and his love for the medium would factor into some of his film production decisions. Band had a massive comic book collection, and the walls of his office were covered with posters made up of the old Jack Kirby, Joe Simon monster comics from the early days of Marvel. Band befriended Jack Kirby, who had just left Marvel for the last time over contractual issues and a lack of proper accreditation for characters he created. There's a much larger story there you should check out if you're interested. It's far too much to go into here and would probably require a whole other video to properly discuss. Anyway, Kirby agreed to a 2-picture deal with Empire. He'd do the concept art and help create the design for 2 new features. One was about a handicapped man who controlled a giant robot called Mind Master, and the other was an homage to Steve Ditko's Doctor Strange called Mr. Mortalis. Kirby drew up hundreds of designs for use in the films. As you can see from this early production art, the design and color scheme screams Doctor Strange, only without the mustache. Band took the production materials to Vestron Video, Empire's distributor at the time, and tried to get them to pick up the project. Unfortunately at the time, comic books were considered nothing more than kid stuff. While there had been a few high-profile comic book movies like Superman 1 and 2, the general thought amongst studios was that it was a short-lived fad which was now over. No adults would be rushing to the theater to watch children's movies. Even with Jack Kirby's name attached to the production, they turned down both Mortalis and Mind Master. Somewhere along the way, Band decided to change the name from Mr. Mortalis to the more professional-sounding Doctor Mortalis. Kirby created the character to be an all-powerful wizard, the leader of a secret sect of sorcerers known as the Dark Order. His faithful sidekick, Egghead, is a witty, half-human, half-computer genius who possesses fantastic special powers. As time went on, Empire Pictures went bankrupt, and Band formed the new studio, Full Moon Entertainment. With VCRs becoming a staple in most households, he saw the demand for content and started making films directly aimed at the home market. Full Moon formed a partnership with Paramount Studios, which gave them a lot more money to work with for their films. Not wanting to let good production go to waste, Band resurrected the old materials Kirby created and turned Mind Master into Mandroid, which was a name lifted from Empire Pictures' Eliminators from 1986. He then turned his attention to Dr. Mortalis. He contacted Courtney C. Joyner, who wrote the very successful Puppet Master 3, as well as wrote and directed Trancers 3. He asked him to write the screenplay for Dr. Mortalis. Joyner was very excited. He had a friendly working relationship with Band and knew how much of a comic fan he was. Joyner jumped at the chance to write the screenplay, but was sad to discover that Kirby's contract had expired and he'd no longer be involved in the production. He based the screenplay on all the designs and materials that had been developed up to that point. He put together the story of a sorcerer, Dr. Anton Mortalis, who's in charge of protecting Earthrealm. His evil brother, Cabal, escapes from his prison in an alternate dimension and plans on getting revenge by killing his brother and releasing an army of demons on the Earth. In keeping with the theme of another program that has a time and space traveling doctor, he had a beautiful companion that would join him on his adventures. Casting the lead was easy for Band. He called Jeffrey Combs to his office and asked if he'd be interested. Combs worked on numerous Empire films like Reanimator, From Beyond, and Cellar Dweller, so he had a fairly good history with the director. Combs often played eccentric bad guys. In fact, he just played one in Full Moon's Trancers 2. However, he was overjoyed at the offer since he'd be able to play a hero. Since Band had been reading comics since he was a kid, this project was very near and dear to him. With him at the helm of Full Moon, he was stretched very thin, but wanted to take the time to direct this movie himself. After some discussions with Danny Bilson and Paul DeMeo, the creators of the Trancer series, Band decided to change the name from Dr. Mortalis to Doctor Mordrid. They also altered the design of Dr. Mordrid to have his outfit more a solid royal blue, instead of the red and blue he was originally. Band commissioned new poster art to sell the film to Paramount as Dr. Mordrid, Master of the Unknown. Band said he made the title as almost a joke. Dr. Mordrid, Master of the Unknown. What are you the master of? I don't know. Joyner had a little more time than usual to work on the script. Back then, most of the Full Moon drafts were written in about 3 weeks or less. With this, because of how much affection Band had for the material, he was allotted extra time to fine-tune it. Joyner said, "I knew I'd be writing for Jeffrey Combs, who's a great friend, and I wanted to get the Mordrid secret identity dynamic down." Most full moon features ran on a very short schedule. With this project being more important to the director, he put more time into pre-production and extended the shooting schedule beyond the norm, although it was becoming clear he wouldn't have as much time to personally dedicate to this as he'd like. He then called his dad, veteran director Albert Band, to join him on the production to co-direct. Charles would direct as much as he could, but if he needed to leave to take care of some full moon administrative stuff, he'd hand it off to his dad to continue. With Charles and Albert Band at the helm, they decided to make this a bigger family endeavor. Richard Band was brought in for the score, and Charles's wife at the time, Deborah, and his son Alex would have cameos. For Mordred's sidekick and love interest Sam, they hired soap opera actress Yvette Kniper. She previously starred in General Hospital, Days of Our Lives, and just finished the comedy Ski Patrol. For the villainous Cabal, they hired the massive Brian Thompson, who was the Night Slasher in Cobra, and Nicholas Remy in the short-lived series Werewolf. The movie was supposed to take place in New York, but they'd be filming in Los Angeles. As a way to fix this, they planned on using stock footage for establishing shots to make it clear this was supposed to be New York. Charles was a fan of the old Ray Harryhausen stop-motion films, which is apparent in everything from Laser Blast to Puppet Master. Band brought in miniature and stop-motion animation expert David Allen. Allen started working with Band relatively early in his career with Laser Blast in 1978. He continued doing stop-motion effects for various movies from The Howling to Q, the Winged Serpent to Trancers. When he wasn't working on movies, he was doing commercials. One of the biggest was the stop-motion work on the Pillsbury Doughboy. For Doctor Mordrid, they had two major scenes they needed him to do. The first was some demons escaping the interdimensional prison, and the other was the much more intricate battle of two dinosaur skeletons. As it was written, it was to be a battle between a T-Rex and a pterodactyl. However, Allen pointed something out. A pterodactyl skeleton wouldn't have any wings that it could fly with. If they animated this thing in the air, waving its bones around, it would look silly. So they changed it to something that could take on a T-Rex on the ground, a mastodon. Allen prepared the stop-motion puppets while the production moved along. Filming started in early 1992 with a budget of around $2 million. The giant Dr. Mordrid apartment was a huge set in Full Moon's LA studio. Mordrid's apartment was a mix of old and new. They covered it with antiques and artifacts, as well as technology that was considered new and modern back in 1992. They worked hard to make this location the centerpiece of the film. They also wanted to give the room a little more personality, so they brought in a professionally trained raven they named Edgar, as an homage to Edgar Allan Poe. The police station was a building that was used as a studio for numerous other productions. The shot of Rio was stock footage. The road where Cabal gets the radioactive materials was just a road outside of LA. This scene was shot in an abandoned church. They couldn't destroy the wall, so they built a replica that they could blow out for Cabal's grand entrance. The park was Malibu Park in California. They reused a gimmick they borrowed from Trancers. They had the long second watch, which would slow down time. With this, Mordrid's amulet would pause time around anyone who saw the light blast. Yvette Kniper was excited and nervous while filming. She was getting married just 2 weeks after filming was set to end. The museum was the New York Natural History Museum. The middle statue is there, but the skeletons on the side weren't. They filmed the location, and then later added the miniatures in post. The scene where Cabal is getting ready to cast his spells, there's a dinosaur leg in frame. They built just the leg about half scale, and placed it in the frame in a forced perspective. The stone Cabal lifts was made out of styrofoam and only weighed a few pounds. Thompson had to do his best to make it look heavy. As an in-joke, one of the monitors in Mordrid's apartment is playing a full moon video zone. Filming took about 20 days. With principal photography finished, the film was edited, while Allen continued to work on the stop-motion visuals. Band had a lottery for the crew, where the winners each got one of the TVs from Mordrid's apartment. After filming, there was a problem, and they needed to do some reshoots. This made for an unexpected issue. Kniper was pregnant while they were filming, but it was very early on, so you couldn't tell. Now it was months later, and she was very obviously showing, which they needed to conceal. So they did their best to shoot around it, and in the end, the audience can't tell. Sculptor Dennis Gordon and his team built the amazing multi-dimensional fortress miniature. David Allen and his team then were able to light it and composite it as needed. They used portions of it for a set extension when Mordrid arrives. This section was the set, and the rest was the miniature and matte painting. Doug Beswick made the stop-motion dinosaur skeleton models. He previously made the stop-motion skeletons for Sam Raimi's Evil Dead 2, and worked on everything from The Empire Strikes Back to The Terminator. The bones were made of foam rubber, which allowed them to be flexible while still retaining the look of bones. The miniature work was incredibly time-consuming. It took an hour of work per second of film, and that was for the easy shots. After Mordrid defeats Cabal, the T-Rex falls, and the skull smashes apart. To do this, they bought a T-Rex skull from Tony McVeigh, who sculpted skeletons from museum shops. They then took a cast of the skull and made about 2 or 3 extras in case they needed to redo the smashing scene. The cast of the skull was made of plaster, which would smash properly when dropped. The spine was from a human skeleton prop they got from a medical store. They built a miniature replica of the museum that they could use as the backdrop to film the dinosaurs. Once the film was edited, they held the first screening for Courtney C. Joyner, Albert Band, and Stuart Gordon. They all loved it. Joyner said it felt like a different kind of full moon movie. Band had so much faith in the movie, he gave it the biggest marketing push of any full moon movie up to that point. He even started using Richard Band's Mordrid score as the music for Full Moon's video zones, the bonus features on each VHS tape. The movie was supposed to be released in August, but due to some delays, it didn't hit home video until September 24th, 1992. When Doctor Mordrid was released, it sadly did not do well. Band was really receptive to the audience, so if a film did well, he usually had a sequel in the works within 6 months. With Mordrid underperforming, the sequel plans were scrapped. They had materials planned for at least 2 more movies, the first of which was already written. The proposed sequel was called Doctor Mordrid 2: Crystal Hell. It made it all the way to a 3rd draft in 1994, before finally being scrapped due to the dissolution of the Paramount Full Moon partnership. The screenplay was about 2 low-level criminals named Lux and Mooch, who tried to steal an artifact from Mordrid's apartment. The artifact was a crystal puzzle that the criminals get sucked into. Mordrid goes into the crystal to rescue the crooks, and after that he wipes their memories so they have no recollection of what happened. Unbeknownst to Mordrid is that while they were in there, Lux was scratched by a demon, which turns his arm into a crystal talon that gives him magical powers. He then uses those powers to get revenge on anyone who wronged him. He gets stronger each day and develops a lust for power. Mordrid then has to stop him before he completely loses control and becomes unstoppable. It ends with a direct tie-in to Part 3, Shadow Queen. Mordrid's battling with a female occultist who's planning on destroying the Monitor and controlling the universe. While doing this, Mordrid is stabbed by a talisman, which transforms him into Evil Mordrid. They planned on expanding the lore around the character. The biggest portion was going further into the love story between Sam and Mordrid. Mordrid saw she was the reincarnation of his lost love, the woman he had in his locket. They showed the locket in the original, but never explained it. Band was thinking of passing off the directorial duties to Mark Manos. Manos directed the sci-fi thriller Liquid Dreams in 1991. Manos was working with Combs in pre-production for Doctor Mordrid 2 before it all fell apart. Manos said he thought the script was so good, it could be a turning point for the studio. It's really regrettable that it didn't happen. Mordrid 2 and 3 didn't happen, but Manos ended up directing Josh Kirby Time Warrior Chapter 3 for Full Moon's kid-friendly Moonbeam label, and then on the opposite side of that, he directed Huntress, Spirit of the Night for Full Moon's Torchlight Entertainment label, which was more adult-oriented features. Jeffrey Combs regretted not having more time to prepare for the role. Full Moon movies often came together very quickly, and Combs wasn't able to flesh out the character as much as he would have liked to. He said, "I never got to look at the script basically until we were about ready to go. I wish that I had, because I would have liked to have had the character be a little bit more active. I found myself just standing around reacting to what everybody else was doing, as opposed to instigating things myself. This was something that could have been addressed in the sequels, but sadly, will never happen now." Mordrid 2 and 3 were written by Ethan Reif and Cyrus Voris. They wrote the script for 2 and wrote an outline for 3. While the movie never got made, it ended up being one of the greatest experiences for the writers. They got a call from Jeffrey Combs, who wanted to thank them for their work on 2. He said, "I read your script, and I can't believe how good it is. I'm so excited to make this, and I think it's going to be great." The writer team was so happy because they were big fans of Reanimator and loved Jeffrey Combs as an actor. Rife said, "Our work's been nominated for Emmys, and we won an AFI award, but I'd put that phone call from Jeffrey Combs equal or above any of the awards we've ever won as just a meaningful acknowledgement of our work." While the writers continued working for Full Moon, they also did something that's really cool to me personally. They created the short-lived but outstanding TV series, Brimstone. Both Jeffrey Combs and Brian Thompson went off and starred in various episodes of Star Trek Deep Space Nine. They were also both in numerous episodes of Star Trek Enterprise together, as well as other Star Trek properties like The Next Generation, Generations, and Combs even did the voice work for the video game Star Trek Elite Force 2. Thompson was Shao Kahn in the notoriously bad movie Mortal Kombat Annihilation, as well as tons of much better productions. Yvette Kniper was in the short-lived series The Adventures of Briscoe County Jr. and the RoboCop TV series. I may have mentioned this before, but I'll say it here again. Alex Band, Charles' son who had the cameo in Mordrid, grew up and became the lead singer for the band The Calling, which had the hit song Wherever You Will Go. Over time, Dr. Mordrid found its audience and became a beloved entry in Full Moon's archives. Still not as well known as the Puppet Master or Trancers series, it has fans who appreciate the uniqueness of the film and enjoy how much effort was put into it. There's been a misconception for years that Empire had the rights to Doctor Strange, and with Empire going out of business, the rights expired, which was why Band made Mordrid instead. Allow me to set the record straight here. I got an answer directly from Courtney C. Joyner. He said, "Never. The story has gotten so speculative and messed up. I don't know if Charlie was ever in negotiation for the Strange rights, as he and Stan Lee were good friends and remained so until Stan's death. When I was brought on, Dr. Mordrid was known as Dr. Mortalis and was the creation of Jack Kirby. Somewhere along the line there was a money problem, and I was asked to step in and use the material that was there in the concept, which was Strange-like for sure. But when I came on, there was no switch around from Strange comics or anything like that. I love the Ditko Strange, and this is certainly a tribute to it, but I took off from some of the great Kirby artwork to construct the story, and I don't recall Doc Strange ever fighting dino skeletons. This has come up for debate quite a bit, and I only take comfort in the fact that our little movie is considered the best non-Doctor Strange Doctor Strange, and we're certainly better than the TV movie. In 2016, 24 years after Dr. Mordrid, Hollywood finally got around to making a theatrically released Doctor Strange movie. Dr. Mordrid is one of my favorite entries from Full Moon. I'm genuinely sad that this was never turned into a franchise. The sequel sounded terrific, and it's a shame they'll never see the light of day. What helps to elevate the film is definitely the cast. Combs is great as always, and he plays really well off Kniper. She has that whole smart, strong, and attractive thing down. You could easily see them adding in some romance in the sequels. Thompson is terrific as well, and is one of those guys who was just born to play a villain. Although I met him years ago, and not only is he super friendly, but he's also very funny, something I wasn't expecting. So many actors who play villains end up being the nicest people. It was recently announced that Dr. Mordrid is going to be in the upcoming season of Mystery Science Theater 3000, which I'm curious to see how they handle. They got a big chunk of nudity they're going to have to cut out. I did an episode on the movie way back years ago, long before I knew most of the story presented here. I think it's a genuinely fun movie, with its heart in the right place. While the main cast is small, their performances are all top-notch. The only bummer is the movie is very short, 74 minutes. It seems like once things get going, it's over. I know many of the Full Moon movies were done quick and cheap to fill demand, but Dr. Mordrid doesn't feel cheap. It's a grand movie with a scope that went beyond its meager budget. In a perfect world, the Paramount deal would have continued, and we would have gotten at least 3 Dr. Mordrid movies. However, I'm grateful for the one we got, and I try to look on the bright side. At least it's not the 1978 made-for-TV movie with the pimp Doctor Strange.
you never get back? This guy says he's on a mission from his master to kill you?
His master's dead.
In that case...